the exciting time for me, man. We're going to get into the wrong on paper decisions and kind of the thinking behind them. I think this is really the guts of it all. And I think understanding not just what they do, but why they do it is the key to the whole thing. So obviously what you hear a lot about is the clean restrooms, at Buc-ee's. That's kind of issue number one. But I wanted to dig into kind of the economic paradox of a bathroom. If you think about it, in real estate retail, every square foot needs to generate revenue. I'm involved with some retail, and that's the way we think about it. It's like we got to be getting every, dollar we can out of every square foot. But bathrooms generate exactly what in revenue? Zero. And so, directionally, that makes you want to spend, as least as you can. In fact, not only do bathrooms generate zero in revenue, they're cost centers.
Yes.
You've got plumbing maintenance, you've got expensive consumables like soap and toilet paper and that. You've got labor hours to clean them. So it's the exact opposite. So it would lead you to believe we should minimize, the bathroom size. And that makes sense. Therefore the rational decision is to make them as small as possible and maximize the sales floor that you spent so much money on. But the Buc-ee's logic is almost the exact opposite. Aplin kind of inverted this whole thinking. He viewed the bathroom not as a facility, but as a billboard, which literally they have billboards around them. But by figuratively, that's what people talk about. Everybody I know that knows about Buc-ee's, that's one of the first things out of their mouth is how clean the restrooms are, how big the restrooms are.
I was talking to my wife Tillman last night, and I said, when you think of Buc-ee's, what do you think of? And the first thing she said was, oh, they have really clean, big bathrooms.
Yes. And so he viewed that as the benefit to spending all that money on them. So he's dedicated massive square footage to the restrooms. They're often more than 30 stalls. In some of the newest ones, it's over 100, urinals and stalls. It's only getting bigger. And he pays staff to clean them 24/7.
I think they're staffed full-time.
Yes.
Somebody's full-time job is just the bathrooms.
They keep them clean. And Buc-ee solved a fundamental human anxiety that you were kind of talking about earlier. The ROI in the bathroom was not measured in direct revenue, but in the conversion rate of the entire car. It's the fact you get cars to come in, you get them to, all the people that come in and spend, and they're located right in the middle of the store, so you have to go buy all these other things to get to them. And strategically, which we'll get to in a few minutes, the food and everything is located. You walk right past all that great smelling food and the theater that's going on around the food and all that. So they're designed to be the ticket in to the whole thing. And he didn't view it as the cost side. He views it as an investment in getting people into the store. So if mom decides to stop at Buc-ee's for the bathroom, dad fills the tank for $50, the kids buy snacks for another $20 or $30, and the bathroom captures the entire wallet. And so I think just that thinking is phenomenal to me. It's like, who would have, because obviously all these other people could have thought about it that way, but nobody does. And ironically too, the other interesting thing, by building such big bathrooms, it justifies having a full-time. If you only have one or two stalls, you can't justify having an employee constantly focus on it, but that big enables them to 24/7 employ somebody, keep them clean.
When you think about capturing that traveling family, I feel like you plan trips when you're driving around two things: bathroom breaks and food stops.
Yes.
And the food stops, obviously Buc-ee's has leaned into, and we're going to get into all of that.
Yeah.
But think about all the competitive alternatives. There's restaurants, fast casual, quick service. There's other C-stores. Everybody's competing around capturing the meal stop. Really only Buc-ee's is explicit in saying we're trying to capture the bathroom stop.
Yes.
And designed and executed the trade-offs.
Yeah.
Strategies, trade-offs, as you like to say, made the trade-offs of sacrificing square footage that could have been revenue driving for a cost center in bathrooms that counterintuitively becomes revenue driving.
Bingo. So another really wrong on paper decision they made is the whole wage approach, the approach to wages. Convenience store margins are razor thin, and labor is the single largest controllable expense for most convenience stores. So to maximize profit, operators should pay the market minimum and accept the high turnover that creates as a cost of doing business and minimize benefits. But Aplin and Wasek see it totally different. They said they recognize their model, high volume, fresh food, constant cleaning, requires a different caliber of employee. And they began offering wages significantly above the industry standard, often $16 to $18 starting compared to minimum wage, along with 401k and matching 3 weeks of paid time off for frontline employees. And in exchange for this above market pay, they demanded above market performance. That's the key to it. It's not just they're going to pay them more, but that enables them to demand more. The company enforces strict policies, no visible tattoos, no cell phones. That's amazing to me. No cell phones, strict uniform codes, and a prohibition on sitting down while on the clock. And that's a real interesting nuance too, because if no one's sitting down, it adds to this sense of energy and excitement. And, all these people are coming and going. And if the employees are sitting around, it kind of drives it down. But the employees are like on stage, much like Disney.
Yes.
So they don't want them sitting
Yep.
around. They create a workforce that was professional, efficient, and stable. The wrong on paper decision to increase labor cost resulted in lower turnover and a level of customer service that's reinforcing the brand image.
Yeah.
People are coming expecting more, and so you got to have employees who can deliver it. The other thing I thought about is, we're going to get into in a minute, these locations are out in the middle of nowhere. Well, when you're out in the middle of nowhere, it's kind of a two-edged sword. It's probably harder to attract people, but now you got higher wages, but now you may be able to attract a higher caliber
Yep.
employee and keep them. And the other thing that kind of occurred to me is, from a culture standpoint, there are going to be people who are turned away by the fact no tattoos. There are going to be people turned away by the fact you can't have your cell phone. There are going to be people turned away by the fact you got to be working the whole. You can't be
You're standing up the whole time.
But they're turning away the exact people they want to turn away.
Yes.
That's keeping the people who see that as exciting and a benefit. So it's kind of a filter in a way for getting the right kind of employees.
So, all right, so they turned bathrooms as a cost center into a strategic advantage.
Yeah.
They are now turning labor, which is often also a cost center, into a
center you're trying to minimize
into a over-investing, if you will, by industry standards, and turning it into a strategic advantage. We're wrapping up, it's not published yet, a proprietary market study, and found that for frontline multi-unit retail like this, guest perception of staff knowledge around the product is incredibly important to loyalty and average spend. When you come in and expect that the people there know what they're talking about, they know the product well, give you recommendations and speak to the pros and cons of something, know the menu well for the hot food, they know the difference in all the CPG private labeled items, it actually creates an enhanced experience. And so in a counterintuitive way, I think Buc-ee's is leaning into that strategy, which is often overlooked in industry.
And interestingly, where else did we hear about this same story? In a previous podcast.
Was it Trader Joe's?
Trader Joe's,
yes.
Same thing. They pay more because they want the experts. They
Yes.
want people who are going to stick with them. They give better benefits, and they create a better customer experience as a result.
The vibe of Trader Joe's and Buc-ee's is so profoundly different, yet they're so similar in the fundamentals of how they think about business.
Very much so. You've got the raving fan employees
Yes.
that create raving fan customers.
Yes,
So-
100%.
Now, the next one to me is the most shocking of all the counterintuitive decision, and seemed the totally wrong on paper decision, was that basically semi-trucks out of the middle of them are 40% of the revenue that's driving by you on the highway are semi-trucks. And so you've got entire industries who have tried to basically accommodate that customer because they have tanks that hold 100 to 300 gallons of gas. And then these guys made the decision, we want to fire that customer, so to speak, and we're going to go after the other. And it's shocking to me to think, how could you fire a customer that's buying 100 to 300 gallons of gas? How could you fire a customer? 40% of the people driving by your location out on the highway are truckers, and you're firing that customer, so to speak. Literally, they put up signs that they don't allow the 18-wheelers and stuff in, but there's a nuance to this where they've designed it for another customer that fits their mold. And so maybe their most controversial decision, but they explicitly ban 18-wheelers. They have signs that say no 18-wheelers at every entrance, and it alienates a massive segment.
Mhm.
So what is their thinking? Well, Aplin calculated that 18-wheelers degrade the experience in the retail customer. Trucks are noisy, they're dangerous to pedestrians, they damage the pavement, requiring expensive reinforced concrete. They take up vast amounts of space. And furthermore, truck drivers generally have what they call low basket sizes inside the store. They're not going to spend as much inside the store. Think about the size of a truck, how much space
Yep.
that would take up compared to 4 or 5 cars that could come in filled with people. So they buy a coffee or sandwich, the trucker did, but they're not buying the home decor or $50 worth of merchandise. But by banning trucks, Buc-ee's created a safe haven for families. The parking lots are designed with smaller lanes and pedestrian-friendly zones. They've attracted the soccer mom demographic, which controls the discretionary spending of the family unit. And the loss of diesel volume was more than offset by the massive increase in high-margin merchandise sales to families who felt safe letting their children walk into the store.
And I feel like that strategy is almost downstream of, and you might be getting to this, so you can take the baton here, of the inversion of where I'm pretty sure most C stores, about 70% of their revenue comes from fuel. Buc-ee's decided to flip that model, and about 70% of their revenue comes from inside the store,
Yeah.
inside sales.
Yes.
And so when you start to think about why they were willing to forego the truck drivers with all the revenue from fuel, is because their strategy, the trade-off was, we're trying to win inside,
Yes.
not outside,
Yes. And we're trying to win families that are on trips,
not truckers.
not truckers.
Yes.
That's kind of who we're designing for.
Yep.
So I'm not even sure truckers would appreciate a lot of what Buc-ee's done. Maybe they would. But anyway, I just thought that's a shocker to me that they literally eliminated 40% of their potential business. And it's the 40% with the biggest tanks
Yes. Yes.
to fill up. So here's another one. I think those were the three big
Big ones. Yes.
but let's get into some other nuances. I think of this as building capacity for the peak, not average.
Hmm.
Most people build capacity for the average. So average utilization of a gas pump is about 30%. So building 120 pumps means 80 of them sit idle most of the time. This is inefficient capital expense. It's like most people would see that and say, why would we spend all that money on 120 pumps when 80 of them are going to sit idle most of the time? It makes no sense. But let me give you the kind of the Buc-ee's logic, so to speak. Anxiety kills transactions. The fear of waiting in line causes drivers to drive past a station. But seeing 100+ pumps signals freedom. It's like, man, first of all, whenever I've driven in there, it says they must be expecting a lot of people. And now, but also, I don't have to wait. You're almost never going to have to wait for a pump when you get there. You're going to be able to immediately. And then the unused pumps are not a waste. I thought this is a really interesting nuance. They're a billboard screaming convenience.
Mm.
The unused pumps speak volumes about the fact that we're convenient and you're not going to have to wait.
Yep.
And that's what people on a trip are looking for. So the Luling and New Braunfels locations have 60 to 120 gas pumps. Even on busy holiday weekends, there's rarely a wait. The visual abundance eliminates the driver's decision fatigue about whether to stop or keep going.
Mm. All right, quick. When you said peak, not average, I thought you were going to go into the peak-end theory. All right, can you just do a quick unpacking of peak-end theory, and then we're riffing here. What maybe how would you filter the Buc-ee's experience through peak-end theory?
So, the whole peak-end theory says that there are 2 points in any relationship that have disproportionate power and influence on that relationship. It's the peak moment created and the last moment created. So if you want to impact a relationship or an experience, focus on creating peak moments and focus on the last moment, because those will have disproportionate power on the way you remember something. And so somebody like Disney creates peak moments, when you ride in one of the rides or fireworks, at the end of the day, and then they have final moments. Like there's a parade at the end of the day, there's the fireworks, so they're disproportionately focused on those two things. I think Bucky's is kind of the same way. They create peak moments where in a pedestrian commodity type experience. I don't remember the last time I had a peak moment at a convenience store,
No.
but you go to Bucky's and you expect to have
It's like a landmine. There's landmines of peak moments waiting to
Yes.
happen
Yes.
all over the place.
Yep.
Or so we went to a Buc-ee's recently together
Yes.
in the lead up to this conversation
We did.
to experience it, and we walked the way of the land, and I'm thinking like peak moments for me were the jerky wall
Mm.
was
Yep.
incredible. Walking by the brisket station was the smell, and my mouth was salivating, like a peak moment. Trying to find all the Buc-ee's gear which we're bringing in here, the T-shirt and the hat. It was almost like a little treasure hunt that we had to go on to. There are several opportunities for peak moments, and then the last moment that I remember was the checkout, like walking through and having a very human to human interaction with somebody as we checked out,
Mm.
which feels very different from most
Very
convenience
much
store
so.
experiences.
So we're gonna get into a couple of those as we go here. So let's talk about, the world of marketing. They have a very unique approach to marketing.
I can't wait for your perspective on this.
Well, the world of marketing now is overwhelmed with digital. It's
Mhm.
like digital allows you precise targeting and attribution. You can geolocate people, so digitally you could be geolocating people driving by you, and all that kind of stuff. So, um, billboards are many times seen as there's an old line in the ad business that billboards are spray and pray. You kind of spray them out there, pray that hope something happens as a result. So, from a marketing standpoint, digital seems it's measurable, it's trackable, it's geolocated. It seemed like that would be the way to go, but Bucky's goes the exact opposite.
Mm.
Instead of digital, they go analog, and they even bring in a little bit of gamification. A physical road trip uh, needs physical landmarks,
Mm.
and so what Bucky's does is they set up billboards every so often along the way so that they build a sense of anticipation uh, way before, and they create a destination, and you see all these billboards along the way, maybe every 15 or 20 minutes. And it's interesting. I found one of the billboards that was Bucky's 444 miles, and I think, man, isn't that interesting? It's like when you see that, if you don't know what Buc it's like, why would somebody wanna let me know 444 miles away? The longest one I could find anywhere was 1,092 miles
No way.
away, Buc-ee's.
Oh,
And so but
thank
it
you.
creates this panache kind of. It's like, why would anybody be putting a billboard that far away? But it also creates a sense of anticipation and gamification that as you're getting closer and closer, you keep seeing these billboards that are announcing, "Oh, it's only another 62 miles, another." And, but what I really love about the billboards, there was an outfit out of Houston that created the first ones, and now they allow even their own employees
Mm.
to help create them. They have like a contest where employees can submit lines, but a lot of them are, around the bathroom
Mm.
because they're saying, "We're spending all this money on the bathroom, we gotta get a return." So that's good billboard fodder. So one of my favorite Buc-ee's billboards is top 2 reasons to stop at Buc-ee's. Number 1 and number 2.
This is like childlike humor, but it's so good.
Yeah. Another one, only 262 miles to Buc-ee's. You can hold it in big in big letters. You can hold it 262 miles. And another one that I loved, our aim is to have clean restrooms. Your aim will help.
But I mean, there it feels so funny and fun, but it's if you start to like unpack and break down what they're doing, like the they're so unique that they build awareness. Like you can't drive by one and not notice it.
Yes.
So awareness, and then you're pointing to like by calling out how far away you are, you're building. You called it out anticipation,
Yes.
like growing anticipation as you get closer. What other convenience store do you stop at where you have any sense of anticipation besides like I need to stop for the bathroom or to
Another dimension of that is there's a theory in advertising called the rule of 7.
Mm.
So you gotta see or hear something 7 times before you really get it. Well, they can put 7 billboards on the way to the next Buc-ee's, and it just seems like every few minutes, and now all of a sudden, you become very familiar with Buc-ee's just because it seems like every, you know, 20 minutes, you're seeing another billboard for them, and then you're building up to this destination that you gotta go see.
And if you're starting them 1,092 miles away, you can probably do 700 instead of just 7.
Mm.
And then I think there's like this, you have the awareness, the anticipation, and then they found a very real like acquisition pain point, if you will, like a reason to stop. People need to use the bathroom.
Yes.
They want to go to a place that's clean and safe, and they are doing it in such a way that would lead people to not just be like, oh, that's very fun and funny. Maybe one day I'll go there. Hey, like in that far, I probably will need a bathroom break.
Mm.
And so it's a very easy way to get people to connect to, all right,
Yeah.
I should stop here, not just
Yeah.
I would like to stop.
And you might even plan your trip. Our family does. Our trip, we plan our trip. If there's gonna be a Buc-ee's, we're gonna go out of our way to go there.
I remember my brother's bachelor party. We drove from Atlanta to Lexington, and we planned our drive to Lexington to make sure we all stopped there. I think it was like 8 or 10 of us to stop at a Buc-ee's.
Mm.
Like, it was almost like we were looking more forward to Buc-ee's than Lexington. It was like
Yeah.
that was part of the destination on the way to the destination.
There's another interesting nuance to this too that occurred to me is Buc-ee's does use digital, but it's customer generated
Yeah.
digital.
Yes.
They create the opportunity for customers to remark about them. So I'll give you a couple of examples. They're famous for setting world records. They've got the world record size convenience store. They got the world record car wash. People come take pictures of those things. You can't believe this. So I think they create the uh, the circumstances where people will remark about them, to so to speak. And even every Buc-ee's now has this beaver outside, a beaver statue. It's like, looks like to me to be some kind of metal, maybe copper. And I noticed people getting their picture made with the beaver on the way into the store to kind of show. So instead of them using digital, they let customers, they create the conditions under which customers will use digital to talk about them. Another little interesting twist that's fascinating to me is they've turned production of food into a performance. And what I mean by that is that kind of the spreadsheet logic would be to prepackage the food in a central kitchen. It's more efficient, ensures consistency, and lowers labor costs. So the standard approach to food would be prepackage it, do it in a kitchen somewhere, minimize your labor. But Buc-ee's does just the opposite. They feel like freshness is a feeling, not a fact.
Mm.
And seeing a human being chop meat and creates this Pavlovian hunger response. I've had it myself. You go in there, you smell the food, you see the food, and then they have the big thing, fresh brisket on the board. They yell that, but all that makes the food production theater.
Yep.
Instead of an expense behind the scenes. All that work would have needed to been done anyway. They just bring it to the forefront, make it a production, make it interesting, and give you kind of a stimulus to respond to it. Interestingly, all those food places are located on the path to the restroom. See, you're going
You have
in,
to walk
gotta go,
by.
but you got to walk by, you see it, and then when you get out of there, now all of a sudden you smell the food, you see the food,
You're ready to buy it all.
you're ready to buy. And that stuff is not cheap, but it's good, which is another interesting thing. In our research, I found the original barbecue. There was a guy who was like a 9-time world champion or something.
Mhm.
I probably need to get his name, but I don't have his name, but who helped create their food. And now he does a lot of the training for their employees.
Mm.
So they took this food. So they had like a world champion barbecue guy in a convenience store originally, but now they sell so much of it, it's well worth it. But they take that brisket and the turkey and all the rest very serious. It's really good, and they make a production out of it. Because what most people do is push all the production behind the scenes. They bring it to the forefront and make a circus out of it almost.
Yeah. It's almost when you start to think about the journey they bring you on, like how well they tap into emotion is interesting to me. So you think about, you often come in needing to use the restroom. So there's like a relief that you need. But while you're heading to the bathroom, you have to walk by all of the hot food. So you're walking by the smells and desire is built up.
Yes.
You relieve yourself literally. So now you've like satisfied your relief. You're free now to tap into fulfilling your desire.
Yeah.
You get the food, Now you've fulfilled that desire, and as you're walking out, you're walking by all the very fun T-shirts and the Buc-ee's, paraphernalia or merchandise, and you can start to think about how do I share this moment with somebody else? And you can fulfill that by grabbing something as you walk out, and they bring you along an emotional journey in a very intentionally curated way that's very effective and fascinating.
You know, it's interesting too, in hearkening back to my Chick-fil-A days, the first 20 years of Chick-fil-A only in shopping malls.
Mm.
And so we got really good at what we called captive audience marketing. And a captive audience means you've already got this audience. Now you just need to give them a stimulus to respond to. Uh, and while Buc-ee's itself is a destination, once they're inside visiting the bathrooms, now you got a captive audience. And what we found was, and I bet this would be true for Buc-ee's too, 70% of eating in a mall, based on the research we did, was impulsive. In
Mm.
other words, people didn't walk into the mall expecting to eat that day. They saw something, they heard something, they smelled something, they tried something, and all of a sudden, 70% of the time they end up eating. I think the same is probably true at
Oh,
Buc-ee's. They come in not expecting to eat, but now all of a sudden there's a stimulus. They hear the people yelling about the brisket, they see the people buying, they smell it, they see them chopping it up, they see them making the sandwiches, and all of a sudden they gotta try that. And so I think they can convert what would have been a non-revenue creating bathroom visit to a very rich revenue creating, you know, food.
I almost sketched out this like guest experience growth flywheel where it's like the billboards create awareness, promising a clean bathroom. The bathroom acquiring them to get in the door satisfies that need. The brisket chant once they're in the door is an activation that wakes them up. You call it the brisket chant. The Beaver nuggets and other private labeled very fun goods are the revenue driver. Like those get put in the shopping cart that you were not expecting to buy to drive up average ticket order, and then they also give you some of that dopamine hit of like a fun new thing to try. The T-shirt and the hat and the gear is what you buy, and that becomes like the referral engine.
Yeah.
Like wearing it causes people to say, "Oh, Buc-ee's." It keeps
Well,
it front of mind.
now that we're on that, let's talk about that for a minute. The label this is inventory of absurdity.
I like
Uh,
it's a great title.
so it's like they stock what they don't need, so they buy what they didn't plan to buy.
Yeah.
And so the spreadsheet logic on this would be optimize for turnover. Stock only high velocity items, Coke, chips, cigarettes, that kind of thing. But deer feeders and pajama pants have low inventory turns, so they're taking up valuable floor space. So why would you do that?
Get rid of them.
You get rid of them. So it's just the high inventory, very predictable kinds of things. But I think the Buc-ee's logic, the wrong on paper logic, would be nope. We've created a human treasure hunt for people. And this is what I've experienced. You go in there and you never know what you're going to find. If the store only sells gas and chips, it's a chore. But if it sells pickled quail eggs, cast iron skillets, and beaver themed swimsuits, it becomes an adventure. And the absurdity breaks the customer's budget discipline and even becomes, it almost makes it more like that theme park. We talked about the Disney theme park. I feel like the food is, is really great, but the rest of it, I just want to go see it. I
Yes.
just want to go see
I want to
it.
walk the aisles.
Part of the attraction is to go on a treasure hunt to see what they have. And it's different merchandise in different locations, and it's but some of it is just almost bizarre. And I think you and I talked about this once before. I learned this lesson long ago from a company called Miami Subs.
Mm-hmm.
This was a company we competed against. They were a fast casual outfit out of Miami. And I'll never forget interacting with one of their folks. On the Miami Subs menu was $1,000 bottle of champagne and basically
At a sub
food
shop.
place.
Yeah.
Sub shop. And I'm like, why would you do that? That makes no sense. Nobody's ever going to buy that. And I said, it doesn't matter if anybody ever buys it. Everyone's going to talk about it. And so they had it on the menu, not because they were expecting to sell any, but it would become remarkable. It would become something people remark about. And everybody would talk. I remember it to this day, and so I think they've got a lot of these things in there that even if you never buy it, the fact you saw it may be fodder to talk about it and tell other people about it. And it creates this sense of a treasure hunt versus just this mundane trip to a convenience store.
So good. And it also reframes like value perception of it moves the Miami sub shop having that expensive bottle of champagne
Yes.
makes you think about the quality of the subs in a different way.
Yeah. And, it extends people's willingness and ability to hang out for a little while, and they just wanna go see what's there.
Mm.
You and I had that experience. We went up there, it's like, I'm
Yes.
just curious what all they have, and I'm
Yeah.
shocked at some of the things they
I
have, and
time ceased to be a reality to me.
yeah.
You get lost in that store.
But that's where the Disney, you introduce this as kind of the Disney effect. Part of the Disney effect is having these things to go see.
Yep.
They're in a sense, they're more like, decorations
Yes.
than actual merchandise, and it makes the whole thing interesting. So, uh, any other thoughts on that one?
Uh, one pain point that I feel like sometimes getting lost can become a friction point. There were times where I wish I knew, like, hey, I want to find this certain thing, and I didn't know where to go. And so I think there were points of like, hey, like Bucky's is incredible and they're killing it, but there's always ways to think about like how do you get better too.
Yeah. In fact, I had a little note here that sometimes they buy the merchandise because they might not see it anywhere else.
Yes, yeah,
It's
it's
like
like
on the sign,
novelty,
but they
one of
see the
one.
novelty, and so
Yes.
they get it. So another one that's fascinating to me, and I can see where this must tug on them. The situation is, if we sell hot food, we should provide tables and chairs so customers can eat.
I did notice that. That was interesting.
There's no tables, no chairs.
Correct.
They're selling all this
Just
food.
yep.
Everybody's about to eat it, but uh, and you could argue that by having customers, chairs and tables, it would increase dwell time and potentially average ticket size. So that would be the normal thinking.
Yes.
But the Bucky's thinking is turnover uh, is vanity, flow is sanity.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you know the flow of things. You want the customer to buy, use the restroom, and leave to make room for the next car. Loitering clogs the high volume machine. So counterintuitively, if everybody pulled up, sat in their car, or left their car at the gas tank, and then sat down to eat lunch,
Had a full meal.
yeah, you're going to reduce the flow.
Yep.
So despite selling millions of dollars in hot barbecue, Bucky's has no indoor seating area. You buy your brisket and you leave. This ensures the parking lot, the real bottleneck, turns over rapidly and allows them to service thousands of cars a day without gridlock.
Mm.
Isn't that an interesting nuance?
That is super.
Because I'm
interesting.
sure they get asked all the time.
Why don't you put in
"Why don't you
tables
put
and
in
chairs?
Chairs. I just bought all this food. I spent all this money, but your car can become.
Yes.
And they're ready to get on the road.
Yep.
They can eat in the car on the road. But I just thought that's I'm sure they've had pressure
Mm-hmm.
to do that. At least to this point, they felt like, nope, flow is what we're looking for.
Yes.
And flow is what we're selling.
Yeah. Well, even though you can get lost in a Buc-ee's, at the same time, the promise is like we're still the destination in between destinations. You still have a place to get to.
Yeah.
And we want to get you there.
Another really wrong on paper principle strategy that's fascinating is the middle of nowhere strategy. This one, after I started thinking about it, it makes all the sense in the world. But up front, it's like in the retail business, convenience store business, in the real estate business, they say location, location, location. And location means high density, build near cities where the populations are. It's like, hey, if you want to do all this business, location, 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 build where the people
Yes.
are. But the Bucky's logic is the gap strategy.
Mm.
They're saying commuters don't spend money, travelers do. So they've designed this whole thing around travelers, and they're 2 hours away from the biggest city or where perfect timing, take a bathroom break or that kind of thing. But building in the middle of nowhere between major cities, you catch people 2 hours into their drive, they're bored, they're hungry, need a break. The original Luling store and the Madisonville store are in small towns. They function as an oasis point. But Aplin realized that real estate in the middle of nowhere is cheap enough to build a 100-acre campus, whereas urban real estate restricts the model. So there's that cost factor. When you build in the middle of nowhere, the land is cheap. You're building in a place that is a logical stop for travelers. Your labor in the middle of nowhere may be a little harder to get, but you're offering something that they probably can't get in the middle of nowhere, these high wages and I'm always shocked wherever I go to it's in the middle of nowhere and it's
Packed every time. Well, so this is interesting. Essentially what they did is they have just as much traffic. They've just traded out the commuter traffic for the traveler traffic.
Yes.
Because they're in between two major cities, so there's a lot of traffic regardless. But what it allows they essentially have to opt out of competition because in
Yes.
highly populated, dense areas, you're gonna have more competitive alternatives, and that's both for, you know, restaurants or other C stores. It's also, like you talked about, less competition for talent.
Mm.
Across the board, you're reducing competition in a favorable way while also reducing costs. Real estate's cheaper, all the things in a
Yeah.
in-between location
Mm.
versus a more of a hub.
No question. So, the next little strategy that was fascinating to me is the importance of ownership versus capital. You know, most people kind of the right on paper would be to go for franchising because it allows for rapid capital light expansion. You can go public, have liquidity, use all that capital for growth. So people are, in business going after capital, but capital comes with it's like a buy one get one free. The minute you franchise and you go public and all of a sudden you have people restricting your decision making. So Buc-ee's said, you know what? The dilution of vision that's associated with the capital destroys the brand. If you franchise, you lose control of the toilets. If you go public, Wall Street will force you to cut wages to boost quarterly earnings. But Buc-ee said they've got zero franchisees. It's 100% owned by Aplin and Wasek. And he said that this allows them to make, I love this, I found this quote, this allows them to make irrational
Mm.
long-term decisions like the 18-wheeler ban that a board of directors would likely vote against. So it's like by keeping the ownership close and restricting the capital, it allows them to get better and make these wrong on paper decisions that maybe a committee of people would not allow.
It for you think about, Beaver and Dawn, clearly they love independence, and they love a high sense of control, which allows them to do all the things that they've done. What'll be interesting is, at some point, I'm sure that they will step out of the business. Time wins all battles,
Yep.
and so I'm curious at some point what there's that next generation
Mm.
strategy will be. If there will be a, "Hey, we're passing this off to going public," or selling it versus a generational play.
That's a good question.
I'm interested to see what happens there.
But I don't think if they sold it to people who are only interested in money, that it's gonna make it better.
Yes. I think if you
They're gonna
remember
kinda harvest it
Joe
instead.
Colomb in the book Trader Joe that we read for the Trader Joe's episode, I remember at the end of the book, he talks about the profound sense of regret that he
Yes,
felt
yeah,
after selling Trader Joe's.
yes.
Uh, the risk here is the same for
And we used to talk about a lot at Chick-fil-A, are you building the brand or living off the brand?
yeah.
I think right now they're building it, and they're able to build it because they make all these wrong on paper decisions, but at some point, if somebody buys it, they may live off of it, and when you're living off of it, you eventually kill it.
Yes. Yep.
So, all right, the loss leader pivot. The tactic, I would say, is the commodity is the ticket to the show, it's not the show, is the way I like to think about it. So, gasoline is the primary product. So, for most people looking at this business, they'd say we need to maintain a healthy margin on fuel to survive.
Yeah.
Now, that's our number one seller. It's what everybody's coming for. We got to have a healthy margin. Whereas the Buc-ee's logic is that fuel is just the ticket to the show, it's not the show. And if you break even on the gas, you can steal the traffic from competitors. And once they're inside, the margins on things like beaver nuggets and jerky and all the rest of the merchandise, all this stuff, that's where you make the money. So they view the commodity as the ticket to the show, not the show itself. And therefore, they can undercut. In fact, I read in one of the things, I think it was in Alabama, they actually had a lawsuit because they were selling gas so cheaply that the competitors sued,
Mm.
saying that you were selling it
It's
too cheap.
anti-competitive. Yes.
But what they're doing is selling it near cost because they don't view that as where they're going to make their money. They're going to view that as getting people there, and then once they're inside the store, that's where they're going to cash in on it. So they use fuel to capture the car, knowing that the inside sales, food and merchandise, account for the majority of the profit margin, kind of flipping
Yeah.
the traditional gas station thinking. They did the same with ice. I remember reading a lot about
Yeah.
ice.
Especially early on.
They're selling ice for 99 cents a bag where their competitors were selling it for like $2.99
Yes.
or whatever. But they viewed ice as you've got travelers, you've got families that are going back, and a lot of construction workers, that kind of thing, ice is a commodity to them, and so they wanna sell as cheap as possible and develop that reputation that we're cheap on the commodities and then really cool with this other stuff that's the high margin stuff.
Mm.
Next principle I wanted to explore with you is, the 20-year overnight success story that we've kind of alluded to before that, you need to get better in order to get bigger. And I think this is the classic thinking would be if the model works, blitz scale immediately.
Yeah.
Right? If the model's working, let's throw as much
Hypergrowth.
money at
Let's go.
hypergrowth. Let's go as fast as we
Let's
can.
open up
Capture
500
market
locations
share
a
before
year.
competitors copy you. That's the traditional thinking. But the Buc-ee's thinking is no, with deep roots withstand storms. And Aplin and Wasek spent 21 years perfecting the model in just one county before building their first travel center. So here they are, tinkering, making it better, and 21 years, but now they've really started to perfect it. Now that first one was a big hit, and then they started expanding. But even now, they're using their own money to expand, so they're not, taking on billions of dollars to expand. They're going to do it right in their minds. And they didn't expand to the massive format till they had it completely mastered, and they went through that whole incubation period. And one of the things I've learned along the way is getting bigger kind of undermines your ability to get better if you do it too quick. So I think using getting better as your tool to get bigger is much more sustainable for the long haul. The last one I wanted to cover with you, there's so many more we go into,
Yes.
but I think the last one that's really interesting to me is it's kind of what I'll call the paradox of proprietary products.
Yeah. This is good.
So I think that way the traditional logic would be outsource merchandise to third-party vendors like Coke or Frito-Lay because managing your own food production and private label supply is too complex.
Mm.
And generally, when you think of private label, generally speaking, you do a cheaper version of the more expensive, it's like you've got the store brand version that's cheaper than the brand that they spend all the time and effort and marketing money to build. But the Buc-ee's logic was exactly the opposite. They said, we're going to create proprietary products that helps reinforce our destination status. You're going to get products here you can't get anywhere else, and they're high quality products. So they're actually charging
And
more for
unique.
theirs. They're unique and high quality. They're charging more, not less. And they've designed them to be a higher, much like Trader Joe's use their proprietary products,
Yep.
not to symbolize it's a cheaper alternative.
Mhm.
In this case, it's a better alternative. And if you sell Lay's chips, I can go anywhere to buy them. But Buc-ee's chips, I got to come to you.
Beaver nuggets.
Beaver nuggets. And so Buc-ee's produces its own branded jerky, bakery items, fudge, endless stream of branded merchandise. They aren't just a real retailer, they're a manufacturer of culture,
Yep.
is a way to think about it. And this allows them to control quality, capture the full margin, rather than sharing it with somebody like Frito-Lay or Pepsi or Coke. So it's a very different approach, especially for convenience stores.
Yes.
And you think about what they were birthed from, the small convenience stores can never afford
No.
to do this. And they've built more and more of a moat
Around
on
themselves.
themselves
Yes.
by doing this. So, but it's very counter to what all the competitors are doing.
To conventional thinking.
Yeah.
100%. The last note I'll maybe add to wrap us up, this kind of is interwoven through all the strategies that you shared, but this idea, there's very much like a Jesse Cole, Savannah Bananas, like create raving fans, Chick-fil-A language mentality that drives all of the trade-offs that they've made that you've walked through. I almost think about it this way, like a customer is based on a transaction, a guest is based on a relationship, and a fan is based on identity. And what Buc-ee's has done really well through all these decisions is move people through each of those phases of relationship, from a transaction to a relationship to an identity. And the tipping point is, as we were doing research, found a lot of examples of people having weddings, getting married in the aisles of a Buc-ee.
Really?
The number of people who have gotten Buc-ee's tattoos, like, you've made it to the fan hierarchy of relationship with a customer when you have people having weddings in your store and people are getting tattoos that they're sharing with other people.
Just building on that, to me, when somebody's willing to pay to put your logo on their clothing or whatever. At this
Irreversibly, for
point,
the most part.
yeah, it's like now you've accomplished the emotional connection that you're looking for as a brand.
Yes.
When people want to wear your merchandise, when they don't have to, like your employees might have to, but when customers are buying it and they walk through, and the reason they want the merchandise, like this T-shirt right here, is because it's got the Buc-ee's
Yes.
logo on it, and you've really, arrived at that point.
Yeah, convenience stores are known for satisfying, like, utility. Buying that T-shirt, you didn't need a T-shirt.
Yeah,
Like, we wanted a Buc-ee's T-shirt,
bingo.
and that's where it starts to get into the fun identity piece.
So, speaking of the fun piece, it's time
Quiz time.
for the quiz.